So hello, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon if you're joining from the Eastern time zone. Welcome to SADEA's first event for 2023, Design CHARCHA, a discussion with designers and allies from various organizations who generously promote and sharing South Asian design perspectives, pedagogies, and histories. SADEA seeks allyship from design community who support South Asian cultural heritage, identity, and narratives. So I'm Archana Shekhara, and several of my colleagues from SADEA are joining us. And we are thrilled to have Louise Sandhaus this morning. And I just have the pleasure to introduce her, and her bio is super impressive, as most of us know. Louise Sandhaus is a graphic designer and faculty at California Institute of the Arts. She's the founder and co-director of the People's Graphic Design Archive, a crowdsourced visual archive that aims to expand, diversify, and preserve graphic design history. Her book on the history of California graphic design, Earthquakes, Mudslides, Fires, and Riots, California and Graphic Design, 1936 to 1986, was published in 2014 by Metropolis Books and Thames and Hudson. It received laudatory attention from the New York Times, The Guardian, London, the Los Angeles Review of the Books, and among many others. In 2015, the book received Palme d'Argent. I hope I'm pronouncing this French word correctly. And I had to practice, and I actually looked up from the International Art Book and Film Festival. In 2019, A Colorful Life, Gare Kavanaugh, designer, co-written and designed with Kat Moore, was published by Princeton Architectural Press and was the subject of a full-page LA Times article. That's impressive. Louise is a Letterform Archive board member, former American Institute of Graphic Arts, that's AIGA board member, former chair of the AIGA Design Educators Community Steering Committee, an AIGA Los Angeles Fellow, and in 2017 was recognized with Design Icon Award from Los Angeles Design Festival. She's a 2022 AIGA medalist. Louise, how impressive is that? So congratulations for all of your achievements, and we are so delighted to have you. Thank you so much for your generosity, your time. Really thrilled and looking forward to learning more from you.
I'm embarrassed with those.
Oh, no. We are so happy and delighted. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's great to see everybody. I'm so happy to be here, and any opportunity that I have to share the People's Graphic Design Archive. I'm seeing on my screen, it's telling me that we're recording, and I can't seem to get rid of this. I may have to just get out of here. And now I've got my pointer. Okay, let's start again. Okay, here we go. So I've got one other thing to take care of. Sorry here, to get everybody off the screen. All right. The People's Graphic Design Archive is a project that makes graphic design history more inclusive and accessible. It's a crowdsourced website, as we just described, that allows anyone to add materials for the historical record. Challenging other collections that are built only by those with academic training or with large funding sources or access to special resources. So a big part of why I'm here today is to let you know about this resource and hopefully get involved in this resource so that you can add Southeast Asian design history. And I'll tell you more about how to do that and how easy it is later in this presentation. Let me get this also out of the way here. Okay. So, we just launched our permanent site on September 1st. What you're looking at here is our new landing page. And we'll look at this live in a bit. But here's a few features. Here's our topics page, which I just love. And by the way, our site was designed by Abby Chen and Rob Meek was the developer on it. But but what you can see here in this topics page, which was something that Abby conceived, is that you can get a quick overview of what's in the site. Like you can look at it visually by looking at, our landing page, but you can get a quick overview here by all of what you might consider the tags or the keywords. You can see places of people and types of work and clients. So all kinds of things are here. And of course, you could do a search. We are about to launch an advanced search site, so you can really drill down in what you're looking for. But you see here's a Faith Ringgold search. One thing also about including somebody like Faith Ringgold, who has been, I'll say, appropriated by the art world, because she was interested in reaching multitudes of people. She did do work that was reproduced, and that we would look at it and call it not art, but we would call it graphic design. So it's also about sort of like reclaiming things that have not been traditionally thought of as graphic design as part of this work. Here's our add to archives page, and I'm going to talk quite a bit more about this page, so we'll come back to this. The archive, and by the way, if you're putting things in the chat, I don't have chat up at the moment because I've got all these things going on. So please feel free to shout out a question. Archana, you could shout out the question if somebody puts something in the chat that I should see. All right, so the archive has many different kinds of material, different types of material, including finished projects, design process, photos, correspondence, interviews, articles, links to other archives. That's super important because there's no point in like taking all the material from an archive and putting it here. You could just go to the archive, but just letting people know that that archive exists. And there's all kinds of media, including JPEGs and GIFs and PDFs and text files and videos and audio, again, as well as links to other archives and relevant sites. So I'm going to show this video. Just one caveat, it was made a few years ago before we actually realized the site. So the site looks different now. So what you'll see in here is what we had conceived as the site, but now the final design is in place.
Graphic design history has a problem. Much of it is either ending up in dumpsters or going unrecognized because it doesn't fit into the established canon or idea of what graphic design is. Without the proper archives and a diversity of materials and voices, much of graphic design history will disappear. But we have a solution. The People's Graphic Design Archive, a digital archive by everyone, about everyone, for everyone. This archive is different. The People's Graphic Design Archive includes not just finished products, but process, photos, videos, letters, documents, oral histories, anecdotes, articles, essays, and other writings. And best of all, it's created by us, the people. There are many types and combinations of visitors. They can browse or do a search for specific content. Entries feature subject, format, medium, designer, and date, along with other related information. Share, make sets, and leave comments if you have more to add to the story. The People's Graphic Design Archive is for research, education, inspiration, or just pure joy. We need your help to make the archive a reality. Join us in building the People's Graphic Design Archive.
Well, I'll go into our team in a bit. But so to offer some context, here's how the archive came about. In 2014, as Archana mentioned, I designed this book. And I had spent a bunch of years researching how California graphic design might be distinct from design in New York or Europe. in researching the book, I came across so much material and people and stories that belonged as part of graphic design history. And I knew that there was like so much more out there, designers who were overlooked, particularly people of color, indigenous work from non-Western countries, and women, often because the work wasn't recognized as graphic design or didn't meet the standards of the time, or what's considered art, often meaning it wasn't considered meeting the standards of the time because it wasn't modernism. One of the things I saw when doing my research was the AIGA Los Angeles chapter archives, and I managed to locate it only 2 weeks, to discover it only 2 weeks after it had been dumped. So all this history was gone. The problem is that there's few places for graphic design material to go and not enough researchers to discover it in the first place. So, as you're probably well aware, archives are very expensive to maintain. And graphic design is sort of at the bottom of the pile. And things that are often called graphic design, though, are in archives. They're just not in there because they're graphic design. So hopefully I'm beginning to reveal like all the layers of complexity and also maybe opportunity to find material. So that's what led me to actually come up with the idea of the People's Graphic Design Archive. I could see it was going to take a lot of work and a lot of people were finding things. And so everybody should have the opportunity. So let's take a little closer look at the site, what's in it, and how it's being used. So here are a few favorite items selected by the team. First, this poster for the Daejeon Expo from 1993 by the legendary South Korean graphic designer Young Jae Cho, that was also immortalized in postage stamp. So seeing the work for students in the United States who are generally seeing things that are either American design or they're seeing European design, here was something from South Korea. Here are vernacular signage photos taken in Las Vegas between 1956 and 1966 by architect Denise Scott Brown, and became the Learning from Las Vegas book. But it's great to see the raw material, what she was looking at, what she took photos of. This calendar, one of a series by the Dutch graphic designer Swip Stock, that he did for a graphics industry company. It's pretty like fun and exciting work, and certainly not when you Google graphic design or graphic design history are you going to stumble on this. And here's something again to emphasize that it's not just finished design that we have in there, but here is the correspondence that I actually did with Keith Goddard on teaching the first design history course, which was in the 1970s. And it was, it took place at Cal Arts. But this is amazing to have this like interview that I did with him to uncover this history. And here's a booklet called Songs of Gold, recommended by famous masters, that was produced in 1911, which is an anthology of folk songs from China. So it's documenting the life of the Chinese in America. So now that we've gotten a glimpse of the work from the archive, I want to share with you some ways in which the archive is being used by researchers and in the classroom, because hopefully this will apply to things that you're thinking about and are doing. So some of you may know Danielle Aubert and may know this fabulous book, which I love the title, The Detroit Printing Co-op, The Politics of the Joy of Printing. So this book is about the work of Freddie Perlman, who was not a printer. He was actually an activist. And he learned to do printing because nobody would print this political literature that he was writing. And, as he got into like learning printing, he learned to do interesting things that as graphic designers, I think we find very inspiring. And so Danielle Aubert, who is a graphic design educator and historian, put together this book. And here's just a glimpse, and you're looking at this in our prototype site, Notion, but I think it really shows you the just a glimpse of just a small part of the material that she added from her research to the archive. So, you know, here's a few of the details of things that are in there. So it makes this research visible so that if somebody else is doing something related, they can find this. They can use her research to do new research and to write new historical narratives. So it makes it visible. It gives access to other researchers, but also it makes it easier for Danielle to find her own material. And I think you probably got a sense that I've also added like all my material. And so I can find my material too. So educators are also making amazing use of the archive to teach design history in ways that are more participatory, and also the content is very different. So this approach encourages the students to become active researchers of history rather than just passive consumers of it. So in this project, what was California Graphic Design History, I worked with a few instructors in the area at various institutions. So what the assignment had the students do is go into school libraries and page through copies of design magazines, such as Print, Art Direction, Western Advertising, Graphice, in search of articles on California graphic design. The reason that it took physical labor rather than just searching the internet is because most graphic design magazines aren't digitized. You know, before maybe the 90s, maybe some are now able to digitize up to the 80s, you know, so they're going in and digitizing, but there has not been digital indexes. If there's somebody you're interested in, like you might know about Corita Kent, you know, now, but she was actually written about, you know, way back when, but you would never find that because it's not digitally indexed unless somebody had already found it and put it on the internet. So in other words, the only way to find this material is to go page by page and reading. So that's what the students did. They found hundreds of articles. So if I was going to do another book on California graphic design, or somebody else was going to do something on California graphic design, all this material could now be found in the archive. So here's a few of those articles. As you can see, the scans are far from perfect, and these were uploaded as PDFs. And it's often because they were in big volumes that were hard to scan. But our motto, and this is super important, preservation, not perfection. The first thing we're letting go of is that we would have the actual artifact. I think somebody wants to get in here. You know, we're not going to preserve the actual artifact. There's not going to be a play unless it's like super, super special and some collection wants it. It's not going to end up in a physical archive. So already we're letting go of perfection and thinking that we can save that physical artifact. The other thing is, if it's going to take too much to photograph it beautifully, forget it. Have your smartphone, snap a photo, upload it to the archive. At least there's a record of it. So again, our motto is preservation, not perfection. So also for the students, the bonus in this assignment is that they were looking through magazines, you know, and got to see a lot of material that they had no idea was part of graphic design history. And I think some of these magazines, it's surprising what they actually did include. Of course, a lot was left out. In fall of 2021, Associate Professor Bridget David utilized, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing her name correctly, utilized the archive to engage your students in research. So students were given a chance to look at the archive for inspiration, and they chose a subject that they wanted to continue in their research. And so this student Lillian Schallenberger chose to investigate the work of Alan Bell, the founder and designer of BLK magazine, which was a publication for queer Black audience in Los Angeles, or it's coming out of Los Angeles. She couldn't find many images of Bell, so she reached out to Bell and actually requested an interview. Bell said yes, and the result was an in-depth interview, and he discussed everything from his childhood to metal type to his goals and his ongoing activism for the Black gay community. He also donated a complete collection of BLK magazine to the University Archives, which we are trying to get her to add to the People's Graphic Design Archive. And so that everybody will have access. But that's amazing. This history of somebody who was not recognized was captured by students. And I'm sure it must have been amazing for that student to get this response from Alan Bell and get this donation. So from the practical angle, Professor Casey Morrow asked students to pick a poster from the archive and learn about the designer and then bring the poster to life in her motion class. So I thought it was a great way to integrate histories into the studio. And Briar Levitt's class in Portland, let's see, is this going? At Portland State, I think some of you know Briar Levitt, and she is one of the People's Graphic Design Archive co-directors. Students select an item from the archive, they did research, and they added an extended description. And then their research was shared via Instagram. So I wanted to point out that in resources on the site, which I'm going to, on the People's Graphic Design Archive site, I'm going to show you that also included in there is a link to the AIGA Design Teaching resource where we're encouraging projects to be shared. So this is a good place to stash them, to see what other faculty are doing. There's a section on design history right here. And so you'll see various projects. Some of them, not all of them, include the People's Graphic Design Archive, but one that does is this one by Alan Cabero Lazar from George Mason University. This is an amazing project, and I won't elaborate it here, but you can go in and find it. And if you have projects, whether they use the People's Graphic Design Archive or not, I hope you'll add them in here. It's a good way to share, and it also keeps a record of these. And it's a place for us to have a collaborator so that people who do use the People's Graphic Design Archive can share what they're doing here. So next I'm going to show you how easy it is to add to the archive, which I hope you'll give it a shot yourself. So first of all, I just want to talk about like finding the material that you might add to the archive and where you might think about looking. And this is just, you'll again find in our resources another list, especially for students. If you're doing something like more local kind of history, what to look for to find it. And it doesn't have to be in your local community. It could be in any community. So there might be something in a neighbor's garage, something maybe you've seen and you've loved, or there's an insanely fabulous archive. Maybe it's that you've come across, or maybe it's mentioned in an article. It might not be a graphic design archive, but you can immediately see that the stuff in it is certainly graphic design and certainly worth talking about. Maybe you've got your own stash of stuff, a small collection or a body of research. And as we just saw a moment ago with Alan Bell, interview a designer or somebody in the graphic arts, and then add the video or audio file. And we actually have a little tutorial about how to do an oral history or an interview fast and easy. And again, we try and make it the threshold like super low so that people feel comfortable doing it and that nothing becomes a roadblock to participating and adding to the archive. Or maybe you just stumble on an item that you think is missing from history. And there are other archives that I mentioned. Just screen grab it and add a link. That's all you have to do. Another source for material is auctions. And I'm going to use that as an example today. So let's look at adding what you've discovered or researched to the archive. So imagine that you set up an account and you'll see the option. My little arrow is not going to work. So you see under my name, it says add to archive. So you see over on the left, it says, hello, Louise Sandhaus. So I've already set up my account and it says add to archive. So I am going to go to this page and this is what it looks like. Don't get daunted by this. You fill in what you can. There's only a few requirements, and those have the asterisk on them, the title, about, and also once you add something, it's going to be the source. So this is what the page will look like when it is populated. And I'm actually going to show you adding to the archive. I'm just going to put my computer down here for a moment. So I'm going to go to the site right now and show you this live. Okay, so I want to show you a few things, and maybe we'll all participate here for a minute. So here is some things that I've added, and one thing that I want to make like super clear is that you can add a bunch of material all at once. I just dragged all 5 of these images on here at once. I could have also added a folder of material. And so we also, well, I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to add another item to this. And this is how you would add anything. You just drag it into this box here. And there it goes. All right. I have already populated this, but I found all this material on this site. I don't know if you know the designer Jamie Odgers, who died recently, but his work is being auctioned. And I want to make sure that there's a record of it on our site. So in this upload here, I have put this as the, I just lost it, as the source, and I'm applying that to all the files that are there so that people know where it came from. It's acknowledging that. It might say something, if there's a private collection, it just says private collection of, but you don't want it to be, you want somebody to know responsibly where that material came from. You can caption the individual images if you want. I think I put one in here. So IBM Pavilion signage, but I would add this for each one. Over here, I've added the title, that's required, and about is required. Now, I've already populated some of this. When it's a quote, I make sure it's seen as a quote. I'm going to go in here because there's some biographic material that might be worth including here. I'll just add this. I think there's also somewhere else on here more biographic material. So I'm just going to paste it right in here and show it as a quote. Right there. I put in, you can add Jamie Odgers as the designer. The date was in there. This is the super important part. This is how stuff becomes rich, findable, meaningful, is to just tag away. So I'm going to just quickly show you what this looks like. And then I hope we come back in here and we just shout out some tags so that we can add tags to it. So here's, okay, we can see that something did go wrong here. That's cool though. It should look like this in this typeface, but that's a small thing because the record is still here. But you see all the material in here, some of which I had pre-populated. And you see the images are over here. So I'm going to just go back in here and edit. Maybe people can like throw out possible keywords or tags that I should add in here. Any ideas? I'm going to add wayfinding. Yeah.
I was going to just say that.
Oh,
Wayfinding.
sorry. All right, we both got it. Okay, so we have wayfinding. We already have signage here. I mean, I could add it here. Let's see. We might want to say something about the typeface.
Ruchita says photography or photographic.
Okay. I like it.
Process.
Oh, I'm in the wrong. Oh, yes, I like that. Process.
Lisa.
Yeah, process, photography. Anybody got anything else here? I'm going to put black and white or B and W. Let's see what comes up. You can see there's all black and white photos. Here, I'm going to show this image again. Guidelines.
I'm just looking at the code, and there are like so many words within the code itself that possibly could be used.
Yeah, that's really good. This is also, I'm going to put modernism. Yeah, because the style, of course, is very modern, which is interesting to see, like Odgers, who was kind of a postmodernist, he was sort of like California New Wave. So to see his work before that, I could put World's Fair in here, but we already have this. Maybe I could put event.
Analog.
Catalog.
I was going to say analog.
Oh, analog.
Like
oh, I like that. Yeah. That's yeah, and you can imagine like what somebody might be looking for, that might find this. So the richer the tags, the more relevance and meaning you give something, and how people might discover it or how it might be useful. So I'm going to leave it for there. Just note these other categories, which are type of work. So this is both kind of like process, but because it was reproduced, I'm calling it a finished work. And the type of work, the format of the work is signage. There's advanced information that you can fill out if you have additional information, where it was made, the size. If there's a link, you can add a link in here. So I could also add the link to the site here. Not add that. just wants to. Oh, it just wants this. All right, I think we discovered a little bug here. Anyway, we could add a link to the site, which we won't do. And I'm going to preview this. It is saving it, so there's no save button here, but there is a submit button. And we can now see it on the site. And let's actually go to the archive. Let's go to the archive. And let's find it. IBM Pavilion. There it is. There it is. Okay, so that's how easy it is to add to the site. I am going to go back to my presentation. So one thing I had mentioned earlier, and I hope that you'll check out, is the resources. So here is one of the resources that we have. Again, I want to go back and actually show you the site. I link that. I'll end with going back to the site, but I just wanted to mention before I go back there and show you our rich resources that there are a lot of people who are generously donating their time. We have a few paid people, but but it's just the energy of so many people who are volunteering, and we have this amazing advisory board, as you can see from this list, from many different communities that are supporting us in quite incredible ways. So here is all our contact information. Feel free to screen grab this. But I am going to say, I'm going to go back to the site here. I'm going to sort of end on the site just to show you all the resources and things that you might think about. So we have tutorials, like just something as basic as adding to the archive, how to document work fast and easy. As I said, we don't want you to feel like you got to get out your fancy camera and lighting. Just some basic principles of adding to the archive. Conducting an interview, fast and easy. Archiving. What if there's a large body of material and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to hire a staff or an entire class. There's too much. How can you think about practices of archiving so that it makes it not so daunting and actually you're able to do it? One thing that we have done is adathons. And these are very cool events where we invited you to one where it's basically an online party for an hour and a half, a community. Somebody will host one of these events and invite a community to add material to the People's Graphic Design Archive. There is our blog entry over here. And here is actually a blog entry about our Latinx adathon, which was just so much fun. If you know Ramon Tejada, you know he's very active and lively, and he had like music on, and everybody was together just like adding the history of Latinx design here. And here are just a few things that were added. So you can look at this article and see. We also did one with Ezishin to get native graphic design added. And here are a few things from that adathon. So going back to our resources, again, the design teaching resource. And here were just a few links to a few assignments. We have research resources, and we've got a few things coming up. So I'm going to stop my share and see what questions, what we might want to chat about. Oh, there's Alan.
Yeah, thank you, Louise. I mean,
Mhm.
that was this so exciting. Thank you for sharing the process and like step-by-step process for us to understand. Super easy. And it doesn't feel overwhelming at all. Like for people who are like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work. It's super easy and fun too. I remember Ramon's collaboration. So maybe we should do one for Sadea as well. That'd be fun. But thank you.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm curious
Please.
to hear what others have to say.
Yeah, actually, just when Louise was talking about, just before she talked about Ramon, I was thinking, yeah, maybe our next event could be like an adathon. Yeah, maybe in a
Yeah.
couple months.
Yeah,
That would
it
be great.
just it's really fun, and you know, if you want somebody from the team to like visit and just kind of like walk people through what the archive is and how to add, we're always happy and excited to be part of that. But yeah, I have a feeling that we know that there's a lot of communities whose work is missing and unrecognized and unacknowledged. So it would be exciting to have more material from Southeast Asia. I don't know if you're seeing this. We're seeing more and more students from Southeast Asia, and so you know, being able to share this history with them would be you know, important and significant, because it's embarrassing to just show this Western and American material.
Louise, when you say South Asia, are you thinking of South Asian countries as well? Like, or are you looking at South Asian American histories, or are you looking at South Asian histories too?
Yeah, you know, I'm kind of like ignorant about what was done in Southeast Asia, as well as what the community in the United States might have produced. So, you know, again, the nature of this is that it's not somebody else deciding what should be part of history. It's everybody deciding. So I have no guidelines on this. You know, I'm sort of speaking from my own position of being like curious. It's like, you know, I think of it like vocabulary. You know, like if you have like 3 words, you know, there's only so much you can say. But if you see that there's this rich world of language, there's so much more that can be understood and so much more that can be expressed. You know, and I think you all know that there's just like, it feels so limited in what students are exposed to, and that they keep replicating the same thing. And so, you know, it just becomes so pale and narrow.
Louise, thank you so much for sharing this. I have like so many thoughts and so many questions. First of all, I just love thinking about how, you know, you're thinking about citation in design. That's something that I struggle with students, because like design is something that's just like taken from everywhere. And like,
Right.
what is the idea of citation? Because we're not making it an oblivion, and especially in design industry, we're just like taking so much work from the local and sort of like thinking about that. So I really love that. And thank you so much for building such a robust archive. Some of the things that came up to my mind in very similar realms of thinking about people who are not unrecognized, but also like thinking about histories of ideas and people. I'm wondering, how do you consider, you know, the idea of labor in this archive, you know, because so many other people's labor is being considered in this work, which is of course like with you know, a deep, you know, how would I say, like almost like a seminar sort of people. But how do we incite, like that's something that I think about, is like labor and citation is not something that's still like on that idea. So how do we consider the idea of labor in archive?
So maybe I am going to do this. I'm going to quickly share my screen one more time. Okay. Because I just want to point this out. When you are let me see if this will work when I haven't added anything. Under credits, right here. Can you see where I'm pointing? I'm spinning around here. Okay. Let me drag something here. All right. You will see, it would work. That you have, I'm going to put Arcana. You're added in here. There are all kinds of roles here. So the more that you're able to acknowledge here, the better, because yes, we are trying to acknowledge all the labor that goes into this. You can see all the categories that are here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I'm just like thinking about like labor in general, like acknowledgement, resources, just like all of the ways. And I feel like it's such a great start to even look at this archive and think about those kinds of narratives. And I appreciate it.
Yeah, the other thing is, we want people to know that we love anybody to contribute to the blog, right, Alan? Yes, we want to hear like different voices, whether it's research that you've done or an issue that you want to bring up. We hope as this gets more robust, that being able to connect communities becomes something that's easier to do. So that maybe this group here, if there's a group of people doing specialized research, they can connect with each other and communicate with each other through the platform.
Thank you so much. Super appreciate it.
Louise, I have a question for you. Is there anything okay, there's a lot of work that gets created on a daily, hourly basis. Is there anything that probably shouldn't be in this archive?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So we want a record of everything to be here. So there is nothing that this actually brings up our process, which is that we do have a moderator. For the moment, it's Breyer Levitt from Portland State University. When we have something, the things that will kind of like flag our attention. So the dumb thing is somebody puts up a picture of a chair and we're like, why, like, why? It's graphic design archive. But we're not going to make that decision. We're going to reach out to that person and say, hey, tell us what you were thinking about. Now, let's say somebody puts up a swastika. Or what is the purpose? If the purpose isn't something about the design, if that's not, let's say it was used in a certain kind of a flag or something, so we do want the record of that. We would probably put we put a window shade on it, saying, something like, it may be offensive. And the other thing that we do is that material that we think could be used in a celebratory fashion, we only upload low res versions of that. Does that make, we're figuring this out as we go along. Does that make sense?
It does. One thing that I was wondering is, does the work need to be published out there? Like, because, this is another thing about published work. There's a lot of work in India, for example. There's like a lot of, and again, some of it is based on either the colonial past or like just the way the structure, the societal structure is. There's a lot of what's considered craft.
Yes.
In India. A lot of vernacular design. Which is not technically published. but it's
Right.
there. It's a part of like
Yep.
our daily life.
Yep.
And there is who do you give credit to? Because there's an entire industry that's creating that work.
Yep.
So unless somebody writes a blog or an article,
Please.
it's difficult to give credit because
yeah. Yeah.
So in that case,
So-
how do we archive that?
Right. I don't have an answer for that. This issue of craft versus design, especially, you brought up, it's not industrially produced. And in some cases maybe anonymous, or anonymous in the sense you don't know who produced it. So all of this we're trying to sort of figure out, but that's kind of like a super important and interesting conversation. If would our moderator flag it? Maybe if there wasn't enough information, but making the case for something, that's the kind of like thinking that hopefully is the power of the crowdsourcing, that people are thinking about these issues together. But it's how, if we're going to say get Indian design recognized, what is that going to be? What's included in there? How do we think about that?
Thank you.
I kind of laughed when you said, blog, or said, yes, please, because it would be, if you're thinking about this, it would be super helpful to share it. And, Alan, you feel free to chime in, but the threshold for our blog is pretty low. It's like 900 to 1200 words, which is like nothing. And so, it can be thinking that's not heavily elaborated. It could just be the beginning of your thinking, and hopefully will propel a conversation. This is, one thing that I did not point out, but for the items that are in the archive, again, I'm just going to quickly jump back over into share. I just wanted to point out that you can add comments to any other item. So if you say something about this photo, and you want to add in that information, or you think something is missing or incorrect, you can do that in this comment section. And it's great when a dialogue gets started about something. In our blog, we currently don't have that feature that I recall, but it would be something great, again, to have that conversation going.
I have one question, Louise, that I've been thinking. Certain in a Western context, certain iconography can be controversial, but in the South Asian or Indian context, it could be revered, or some so they might be contrasts. So how would you handle that?
Well, the first thing that came to mind was sort of like decentering the Western world as the kind of like the be all, an arbitrator. So, we had graffiti. The Letterform Archive is doing an exhibition on graffiti. So I think more and more we're acknowledging it as a form of kind of public communication, which, just Shantanu, please tell me how to pronounce your name.
Shantanu.
Shantanu, this is also, I think, something that you brought up, which is the kind of, the something that is not, graffiti is not considered craft, but again, it might not be produced in multiples, and not industrially produced. So we're more and more, that's been sort of on the periphery, or didn't, meet kind of like the way in which we conventionally thought about graphic design is being brought in. And so again, anybody should feel empowered to make that decision and hopefully make the case for it.
I'm also looking at time. One more question, maybe?
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Alan. So comments do work for the blog post too. Just check. Great. Fabulous.
Hi, Alan. So glad that you could join us as well.
Yeah.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Louise, do you all share send newsletters?
We do. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, please. If you also, just create an account, you'll see it'll ask you, but you can just go, it's on our site. You can just, we send, we do send a monthly, sometimes bi-monthly newsletter. So please sign up for that newsletter. Please create an account. You don't have to do anything once you set up an account, but you'll be part of our community. You'll be on our newsletter.
Hey, Louise, I just wanted to say hello. I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. Auburn, and I'd like to applaud you for the effort that I can only imagine the hard work that went into creating that tool. And I definitely see it, me using it from my students, especially that we have a lot of rich history here. And those examples are very helpful, how that blog has been used. And I can see myself taking my students. One of the things I do with my students is start off with a keyword search, and you have the keywords in your it's a really wonderful tool that you created.
Thank you. Yeah, and again, I want to pitch, just like using the archive in the classroom in kind of creative and inventive ways, and being sure to share that so that we can be inspired by how you're using it, know about how you're using it, but also, most importantly, that there's a community around that can get inspired to bring it into their own classroom. Because that's always daunting, is knowing like how something has worked, how it has not worked. So Alan, when you added to the design teaching resource, there was an area for kind of reflection on the assignment. So, it strengthens that community and ability to be effective. No, you are not alone.
Louise, I have a very technical question, and maybe you already have an answer. Is there a way to add a tag in the comment section? For example, if I'm looking at some image, and if I feel that is somehow connected to India, can I add the keyword or tag in the comment section if the original contributor hasn't?
I'm trying to remember, and we may all have to look at this. If you have an account, I think we figured out that you could go into somebody else's item and edit it.
Okay.
If at the very worst, you add it as a tag in the comments, and then hopefully somebody adds it. But I'm pretty sure if you have an account, you can go into somebody else's item. I mean, we are a community. We are like and unlike a Wikipedia, a wiki. We do not have the crazy thresholds that Wikipedia has. But I wanted to say one other thing about, does it have to be published, was a question that you had asked, but it was in reference to craft, and distinguishing that is our terms of use, which when you create your account, you acknowledge that you have read, and they are quite lengthy, but essentially what it says is, we don't own anything. This is for educational and scholarly communities to use. If you want to publish something that's in here, we're still adhering to, the acknowledgement of intellectual property. Now, I think everybody knows that fair use is being opened up a bit. That if you are using something to talk about it, that we are now accepting more and more that that's fair use. Nobody's going to go after you, but I'm not a lawyer. So anyway, Archana, I
Louise.
probably more than used my time here.
Oh
Louise,
no,
I just want to ask one thing. How long did it take you to make this work?
I was going to ask the same question.
I was like, how many
Like,
years has it been coming?
What was the process like?
Yeah, so the earthquakes, mudslides, fires, and riots book, it was at the publishers, and I was at a meeting at the LA County Museum of Art. They had decided to start collecting graphic design, and they had a kind of colloquium with design historians and curators to think about what are the challenges and issues in collecting and exhibiting graphic design. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, there's a chance that they are going to collect what they already know about. What about the stuff that hasn't been researched, that they don't know about, that none of us know about? And I suddenly thought, oh my God, that material is just going to go unknown and it's going to disappear. And it was at that moment, the lightning strike happened. We can use technology and everybody can participate, because it needs all these eyes, all these interests. Oh, thank you. Yeah, to be able to do something at this scale. Thank you for showing that. Yeah, so that's how it got conceived. So that was in 2014. And so, like a crazy person, the earthquakes book took like 15 years because I was like a crazy person, saying I'm going to talk about California graphic design history. They're like, what? Oh, you're going to do a textbook. Oh, you're going to do this. Or you're going to do that. Nobody understood what I was doing and nobody wanted to publish it. And so that was like Crazy Project 1. People's Graphic Design Archive is Crazy Project 2.
Extremely inspiring. I mean, your journey and everything that you have done so far, your entire career, it's very inspiring, Louise, for all of us. So hopefully we can follow some of the paths that you have shared with us and also populate the archive with our South Asian histories, our own stories.
Yeah, please.
And we
please,
could also,
we need those. We need those. I mean, this is just like missing, or maybe it's somewhere, but I've not been made aware of it. And I really, really want to know more about this. I want to be able to understand it, appreciate it, be able to like talk competently about it and share it in the classroom,
Yeah, I mean, I got a chance to visit Letterform Archive over the summer.
Yep.
Summer, and there are a few, I should say, South Asian design that's archived, but not as much. I had the pleasure to meet a few people and then also get some kind of a tour, and so they shared what they had. So it seemed lovely, but they could do more as well. That's what they were saying. And we will try our best. And I think Adathon sounds fun. What Ramon did seemed a lot of.
It's so fun. So I hope you'll do one of those. One thing I wanted to say about the Letterform Archive also is that they have something called the Digital Collective, and we're part of the Digital Collective. They're also our fiscal sponsor, and our alliance with them is because they are collecting. They are one of the few institutions that is really preserving the physical items, the objects, the best of, and they are digitizing that and making it available. But of course, there's so much more out there. We are the democratized part of this archive. We're that hand, we're that angle. So again, so that everybody decides, and some of the things that they see on our archive, they go, oh, we didn't know about that. And then they go, oh, we should make sure we preserve this, we acquire it. And then so then they will find that item and add it to their physical collection. That's
so wonderful. Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Really generous. This whole idea is so generous. And so, like, I mean, for us graphic designers, we always talk about our work is so ephemeral. And then, but to collect this and digitize it and give it out to the public, share it with everybody else, the whole world. So thank you for being, it's a noble cause, as well. Right? It's such a noble cause for our future generations. So thank you again, Louise. And you have a wonderful afternoon and or still morning for you, I guess.
It is still morning, but Archana, you have a wonderful trip. It is so great to see everybody here. I love this. I just love the atmosphere and the spirit of it. And so thank you all for having me.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I was going to put well, I mean, you guys can find this, but there's the People's Graphic Design Archive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.